All right, so hi everybody. My name is Darby Malvey. I am the Programming and Outreach Coordinator here at LibraryLinkNJ, and this is our skills sharing conversation on facilitating book clubs and book groups. We are really excited today to have Mary Martin of the Wanaque Public Library. Did I say that right, Mary? Wanaque?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I looked it up.
Thank you.
And good, and Janet can hear now. Great. The way it will work is Mary is going to be our discussion moderator. So she has some resources to share with us and some ideas and some thoughts, but she also has some questions. And we are going to have a conversation and a discussion too. This is not a formal webinar by any means, so feel free to jump in, unmute, share, put things in the chat, turn your mic on if you want to. We're all here to share ideas and learn from each other. I am here and my colleague Stephanie is here, so if you have any questions, you can feel free to chat us separately or publicly, whatever, and we'll try to help if you're having trouble with your Zoom or anything like that. And if you have to duck out early, don't worry, the recording will go up on our YouTube channel soon. I won't say when, but soon. So you'll be able to watch the full discussion, at any time. So Mary, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So yeah, anybody who has met me before knows I'm not very formal. So this is a perfect format for me. I did want to say, and I'm sure maybe Stephanie and Darby could mention this in the chat later if people join later. If we are interested in communicating with each other past this skill sharing workshop, I think we can ask LLNJ to create a forum for us where we can share ideas specifically for book clubs. They don't have one yet, but I think they could do that. So if that's something that you might be interested in, put that in the chat, put your email address in the chat. And then what we can do is after they create the forum, either Darby or I would just email you all just to let you know that forum is available and you can join it. So the reason that I wanted to do this book club thing is because I really want to be able to borrow book club kids from other libraries. And for those of you who don't have book club kits, let's see, where does it look like? This is what one looks like. So basically, we get 10 copies of a book, and we don't actually individually barcode each copy. We just label it right on the side. And then we put them in a bag with explains what it is, and what we do is we also include in the kit a list where the person who's borrowing it can keep track of which copy they lend to which person. And we check them out for 6 weeks. And when a kid is checked out, we just put this little card that we made into our so we'll check it out in our ILS, but we'll also put the card in to say when we're expecting it back. The benefit, I think, of book club kits is that you do not have to request 15 individual copies of a book. It saves you a lot of time. But I've been frustrated about how difficult it is to find book club kits that we can borrow. So I wanted to maybe get other people interested in it. And I did find some neat stuff about them while I was researching this. So we'll talk about that later. So talking about book clubs post-COVID, there's several different options. We were talking before the meeting started about sometimes it's hard to get people to come to an in-person one. It's hard to get the people back who were coming before. It's also interesting that not all book clubs want to meet in a hybrid format, because during COVID, I run a book club for the Whippany Public Library, and they hated meeting on Zoom, and they wanted to get back to meeting in person as soon as possible, even before the governor allowed us to be back in the building. So we met in somebody's backyard. But I'm going to introduce my colleague, Susan Lindemulder, here from Wanaque, because she has found that hybrid meetings can be really beneficial in our case, not in everybody's case. But so Susan, would you tell us a little bit about ours?
Sure. So during COVID, we were fully virtual. And what happened as a result of that, I had started with a Thursday morning book club and a Wednesday evening, but during COVID, it all bottled up into just one in the evening. As a result of going fully virtual, I had people join, young nursing moms or moms with small children. I had at least one person join from New York State at the invitation of a friend of hers who's a patron here at the library. So when we decided we were going to go back to in person, they pleaded with me to somehow keep Zoom an option. So talking to Mary, we decided we could probably do a hybrid format. Doing that, we go down in our children's department, which we have the large screen TV, which is great for hooking up the Zoom connection. So I have probably maybe 8 to 10 people who come in person. I have at least 5 that join by Zoom, sometimes more, sometimes less. And the first meeting that we did hybrid format, I had one of my patrons in person who has some hearing issues. So there was concern about not hearing the Zoom. People on Zoom were like, we can't always hear everybody that's there in person. So again, I talked to Mary, my tech guru, and she was able to find some little contraption, a speaker, right, Mary? Some kind of speaker.
An omnidirectional microphone.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like a hermit crab, and it's like $40.
Yeah, so that gets plugged in. And so since then, I have, my people that are here and the ones on Zoom have no issue with the hearing or knowing what's going on. The beauty of the hybrid, as far as I'm concerned, is that I've had instances in the past where because of weather, I had to cancel an in-person book group. And people who put in the time and the effort to read the book were like, oh, but we really wanted to talk about this. So the beauty of hybrid is I can that very morning send an email to all of them and say, hey, we're switching over to fully Zoom tonight. Don't leave your house, pour your wine, get your cozy pajamas on, and let's talk about the book. So that's my option. We don't record it. I'm not one for recording, but I will have to say that, and Mary's been there when we've started the hybrid. I don't think that in any way it's inhibited the discussion of the books. People are, they're hearing each other. I love my book group, to be quite honest with you. Everyone's very respectful. I know that there's all kinds of political views, different religious, all of it, but everyone is so respectful of what everybody else has to say. We don't care if they don't finish the book. We don't care if they hated it and everybody else loved it. It's a wonderful discussion. We do fiction, we do nonfiction, we've done memoirs, we've done biographies. Next week, our whole discussion is going to be a book roundtable. They're just going to bring in their book ideas. So I think that's pretty much it. I think that if you really, it's not real hard to figure out the hybrid. I think that the hardest part for us was just making sure that the volume and the, although I have a couple who say, I'm not sitting here, look, there's me on the screen. They don't want to see themselves up on the TV. So,
yeah. Thank you, Susan. And after our first hybrid, I didn't know if we could do it either, but we ended up, we have a TV in the corner of our children's room, and we hooked up the laptop to that. And therefore the sound of the Zoom people comes through the TV. It's really great. But we did have a problem with people on the Zoom saying they couldn't hear people in the room. So I called my brother, who's a tech guru, and I said, how can I how can I make it so that people can hear each other? It's like, well, you need $1,000 system that's going to do blah, blah, blah. And I go, what? So then I went on Amazon and I found this little, it's really cute. It's like a hybrid. It looks like a hermit crab with a long USB cable. You plug it into the laptop and you turn it on and you sort of put it on a chair next to all the people who are in the group, and it's omnidirectional, picks up their sound, good enough. So what we're looking for is not like the best, we're looking for good enough. Has anybody else had any experiences, good or bad, with hybrid book clubs that you'd like to share?
I'll share. I'm Allison Bozich. I'm from Pennsauken Free Public Library. And we just started, I put in the chat already that we just started our book club in September. And we've been meeting with us in a hybrid format. The only issue that we really had is that the in-person group, we've had, I think, 9 to 10 the last 2 meetings attend, which has been great. And but we have a really lively in-person discussion. And I think the 2 or 3 that attend on Zoom are maybe a little left out of that. So I try to bring them in, but I think that's the only issue we've had. We have figured out the technical. We did what you did for one of the meetings, and then now we're using an OWL camera and we have a projector. We're meeting in our library community room. So with the audio visual is okay. It's more just, I think it's easier in person to sort of jump into the conversation.
Yeah.
One, sorry, I'll enter the conversation. One interesting idea that we had, we did an accessibility conference in September. I don't know if anybody was able to make it to that. It was like a 1-day virtual thing, and I wish I could remember the name of the person who did this, but I'll look it up and send it out when I send out the follow-up email. She did a hybrid book club, but it wasn't hybrid all at once. She runs it twice, which I understand is like a staffing, your staff has to run it twice, right? But basically the way it works is everybody reads the same book, and then here's the in-person date and time, here's the Zoom date and time, and people can just choose each month which one they want to go to. So if they're able to get out of the house and come, they can. If they're not, they're on Zoom, but you're not having that issue of some people are in person, some people are online, not everybody feels like they're on equal footing. And she said that it's been really remarkably successful. And I, for the life of me, can't remember who it was, but I will find out. So if you have the staff time to be able to, of course, run the same book club twice, which could maybe be an issue, that might be a way to go, just for like an inclusivity, accessibility issue.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Allison, I just want to say that I hear what you're saying about the discussion for the in-person people. And there've been a couple times where I've seen that here, but I know who's on the screen next to me. And I know some of them are itching to speak. So it's really hard the first couple times you do it, but you have to kind of say, hey, so-and-so, what did you want to add something to this? Or we haven't heard from you. What did you think? And that's part of the in-person, thing, but it's also something that you have to, like I said, it's really hard the first time you try to interrupt your people, but they get to know you and they understand what you're trying to do. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So this, I'm just going to tell you, there is no right way to run a book club. The one that I run for Whippany is a lot more freewheeling than the one that Susan runs for us, and they're both successful. I think it helps to set the expectations for the group with the group, like if you're starting one from scratch, talk to them and say, well, how would you like this to run? And this is how I'm seeing how it would run. And let's see how it works. And then ask them for feedback. And then the other, oh, thank you. Ariel Zeitlin at Montclair Public Library did the 2-part hybrid club. So for me, I would rather gouge my eye out with a fork than to do the one that Susan does. That is not, I was not a person that enjoyed English class in school. I do not enjoy talking about, the symbolism in a book, it makes me freaking crazy. So that's, I made it clear when I started this book club at Whippany for the director that I was going to do it the way that I felt more comfortable. And luckily there are people there who like the way that I do it, but they also have a book club there that is more serious, that does spend more time on discussing having serious discussions. And they have people at that too. So there can be room for all. And for those of you who mentioned that you were thinking about doing a nonfiction book club, one of the things that might be interesting with that is you might be able to attract more guys to that. And there are some really, really great, interesting nonfiction reads. But anyway, not all libraries can support more than one type of book club. At Wanaque, Susan does our book club. I don't have time to run one, so we only have one. But I know I see Rochelle from, oh, thank you, Rochelle. Rochelle from Whippany is on the call, and they have 2 book clubs, and they can support that. I'm the one that does the paid one. I think the facilitator for the other one that's much more serious is a volunteer job. So if you're going to run a successful book club, you kind of have to decide what kind of book club you feel comfortable running. For instance, in ours, we call ours the No Guilt Book Club because we don't mind if people either don't finish the book or haven't even read the book. We're still going to have a good time. Actually, so like for ours, we maybe spend 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting discussing the book, and then we go around and everybody talks about the books they've read that month, and they recommend books to each other. And, it's just a more of a freewheeling discussion where we all bounce ideas off of each other, and then somebody will come in the next book and next month and say, hey, Marianne, I loved that book you recommended. Thank you. So there is no one right way.
Mary.
Yeah.
For those of you running a book club, here's another thing I learned. I don't have to love every book that we read. So because I'm taking suggestions from my book group, there have been books that they wanted to read, and I'm like, all right, we'll read it. And when they find out that I'm either skimming through the book because I can't stand it and I'm just trying to get to the end, or that I did read the whole thing, but I really didn't like the book, they're more free to say, I don't like this book, and here's why. So you don't have to like every book that you pick to read, okay? And when you're open and honest with them about that, they feel more comfortable saying, I didn't like it, I put it down after the first 90 pages.
Yeah, you're right, Melissa. When the discussion, when the feelings are mixed, it can be a much more interesting discussion. So there are a couple of interesting ideas for alternative books, and I think Albie Ashbrook from Long Hill Library is on the call. She runs a walking book club, and Albie, would you mind telling us a little bit about that? Okay, so Albie might not be here right now, but I also
Albie's here. She was just
good.
muted.
Oh, there you go, Albie. Okay,
sorry.
thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, so I run a book club here in Long Hill. It was not my great idea. I just inherited it. But we have a beautiful library and a beautiful park right behind our library with a paved walking path. And so that's just a great thing for us. It was a nice alternative for everyone during the COVID years, and people could be together but outside. And I think the first couple of months we walked with masks, and then we were eventually walking without masks. The group has anywhere from 5 to 15 people coming. We meet on the last Friday of every month, and we don't even start in the library. We meet at a covered pavilion. And one of the funny things about our group is it always goes, rain or shine. And we've walked in the snow, we've walked in the rain, we've walked in blusters. We have one lady who weighs about 70 pounds, and I'm much bigger. And sometimes I make her hold on to me so she doesn't blow away. But some tips I have for that is if you're trying to get a range of ages, and we do have a range of ages, is you want to schedule that around the school bus run. So we sort of have, it's early enough in the day that we have some younger mothers join us and they can still finish with us and go pick up the kids off the bus. We also have some older walking crew, walking ladies, and sometimes some men. But what we do is, first off, we always read a short book. It's just the way it goes. I run 3 book clubs at this library, and by the end of the month, I want a short book and people want a short book. So we've done some things, you know, some novellas. We read anything. This month we read John Grisham's short book, Skipping Christmas, which is very light and fun. And so a short book, we meet outside, rain or shine, and I print some book discussions. And we usually divide the group into walking paces. We have a faster group and a slower group. And I will sometimes walk with the slower group and I will sometimes walk with a faster group. And that's how we sort of mix it up. We meet at the covered pavilion to start. And that's sort of our social time. We stretch, we say hi to everyone. And then when we start walking, we're talking about the book. So it's different from a walk around your neighborhood with your dog. Once we start walking, it's book time. And do I have anything else on this group? No, that's about it on this group, but it's beloved, and rain or shine. We've got some great pictures of us out there in the snow and so forth and so on. So if anyone has any questions on that.
So you said there's a faster group and a slower group.
Right.
And even if you're not in one, whichever group you're in, the other one, they're still committed to just talking about the book with each
Right.
other.
So I pass some questions that we're going to talk about. And so both groups will have a little, you know, index card, if you will, with the questions that we're talking. And sometimes at the end of the group, we'll meet at the pavilion if people aren't running away, and we'll sort of do cross group chatter.
Neat.
Yeah. So that's the walking book club. And I should have added earlier, but when we were talking about nonfiction book clubs, I ran a book club that was Read Around the World. And we had a fiction choice and a nonfiction choice for each country. And so that was a way to sort of pull in different tastes and interests.
Did you still run that one, or?
I do.
Yeah.
But that book club, we pick a theme every year. So, you know, I think next year we're picking all women authors. And so that's sort of our motivating thought. Last year we did Read Around the World. One year we did New Jersey Reads Only, and that was fantastic.
Huh.
People really enjoyed that. We had some field trips. We went to the Finding Kate Macy Ladd, the book about the entrepreneur, the healthcare entrepreneur in Bernardsville. We went and walked around her facility, and that was a lot of fun.
So this is actually a good time for me to say that Darby has created a Google folder for us called Facilitating Book Clubs on Library Link. And so I have actually created subfolders, one about book club discussion lists. So if you would, please, anybody is welcome to share your lists of previous and current, you know, themes and ideas in here, because that's going to make everybody else's life a lot easier. And Darby, if you could you put a link to the Google Drive underneath the skill sharing workshop
Yes.
link on the, you know what I'm saying? Okay.
Yep.
So
No problem.
and we'll make sure that we put a link to the Google Drive when we start the forum for each other. But this is the thing, we're all trying to do it all. And if we can work together and steal ideas from each other and get advice from each other, it's going to make everybody's life a lot easier, I think. Thank you, Albie. Anybody have any other questions for Albie? Okay, thanks, Albie. So
Sure.
one other thing, I found an article about running a parent-child book club. So I shoved that into the, I think I shoved that somewhere in here. This might be it. But then I also found an article from The Atlantic about how to keep your book club from becoming a wine club, WINE. And that's that was an interesting article because sometimes you want a wine book club and that's okay. So, but for those of you who are looking to sort of corral people into being more serious, you might get some tips from that article, but I don't think there's a wrong way to run a book club. And that's it. So I know somebody had mentioned that you were interested in starting a book club for college kids. Does anybody want to talk a little bit about that or any other types of book clubs that you run that other people might be interested in?
I can say something, Mary.
Thanks.
I worked with Ariel Zeitlin, who we just previously mentioned. She was a great book club runner, and I learned a lot from her. And she always said that if you're doing so much prep work for it, why not just do it twice? You've done all the legwork already. But she ran a great book club for many, many years that was a mystery book club, a mystery true crime book club, and that was very well received.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was great.
And Jillian just asked, does anybody have experience holding a cookbook club? I worked at a library, the Newton branch of the Dennis Library, and my coworkers there started a book club called Delectable Delights, and it's still going. They pick a cookbook every month, and then everybody chooses a recipe from that cookbook, and then they meet at the end of the month, and it's a potluck. It was a little bit weird during COVID. They would, I think they did it so that they met outside and just sort of exchanged small packages. And I don't know, I don't know how well it's doing for them now, but the people who are into it are really enjoying it. Actually, one of the things last night, if Rochelle is still on, people in my book club at Whippany were like, hey, can we have wine? I said, no, we are meeting in the municipal building. And 3 of you are board members, so you should not be recommending that. Yeah, the cookbook club is an interesting idea too. And we have so many neat ideas, and it is really disappointing when they don't take off, but sometimes they just don't.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I work in the college, Union County, we used to be called Union County College. We're now called Union College of Union County, New Jersey. And I recently started a book club. We had 2 instances of it. The first one, we had 2 English classes come and the students were not there voluntarily, so it was not very conducive and they had not read the book. And then the second one, we had no students show up. So I'm looking for ideas, how to attract college students, busy college students to read. We selected the graphic novel Dune. I thought it would be a good choice, but we had nobody participate. So,
Colleen Hoover.
How about a survey?
yes, one of our ideas was to go into English classes, talk to them in person to gauge the interest and give them a survey to fill out. And yeah, that, and somebody, let's see, Darby said something about having it in a coffee shop or a restaurant or a brewery or something.
Mhm.
I don't know, they might be underage, so I don't think anything with alcohol would work, but it's definitely something to think about. So thank you for the suggestion.
You guys at Union have that telescope or the observatory. Maybe you could do something, you know, everyone likes to go look at the stars occasionally. Maybe you could read something with a star theme and meet there, you know, on campus.
Yeah, that's an
Also-
idea.
And
Casey-
maybe don't go with the English departments. I mean, maybe those kids are reading enough. Maybe go with, you know, the math or the physics kids who aren't. reading.
Yeah, I'm the STEM liaison librarian, so
Yeah, so you know that.
that
I was
could,
gonna suggest too, Casey, that maybe if there are other clubs on campus, maybe it doesn't have to be the same group every time. Maybe it could be sort of a rotating book club where you partner with, you know, the video game club and you read Ready Player One, and then you partner with the, I don't know, whatever other groups you guys have, and sort of do a different book or whatever each time with the groups if they're willing to kind of participate.
That's a great idea. I could think of the calculating stars for if there's an astronomy department or a science
Right.
department. I was wondering also, Casey, if you could get any of the departments on campus to offer like an extra credit thing if the kids participate in a book club.
Mm.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. But I don't know. I'm sort of leery about having students be there for
Credit. Yeah.
ulterior motives and not just be there
Well,
want to read a good book and discuss it.
yeah, but I mean, when I was a college student,
Yeah, I mean, give them extra credit as well.
yeah, I was drowning in my work and I would have loved to read. So I guess I see what you're saying. You don't really want to bribe them, but if you want a book club where people are coming, you might have to bribe them with food or credit or whatever. But I think Darby's idea was interesting too, of, you know, reading the video game. I mean, who wouldn't want to read? Okay, so there are a lot of people, including my book club, who would never want to read Ready Player One, but your
I
video
was a hall director in grad school, so I have a lot of experience coercing undergrads into
Yeah.
participating in things. So I think if you can get their clubs or their groups that they're already interested in to participate and kind of guide which book they pick and that kind of thing, and make it an activity of that group,
Right.
you might have more success because they're already invested in that club, you know.
Well, maybe, I mean, not narrow it down to just that group, just have it, the focus be on that group, and if anybody else wants to join.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
co-sponsored by, co-sponsored by a video game club, right? Yeah.
So I have a lot of college kids. I have 3 college kids right now, but I don't know why I didn't mention this earlier, Casey. I'm leading by Zoom a book club for my daughter's crew team. And you can probably guess what we're reading, Boys in the Boat. But I'm just doing that by Zoom with those people, but they're, already a unified group that's together. So
So
maybe a
when Mary-
sports.
Yeah, to have something that relates to their classwork and their
Mhm.
hobbies and their extracurricular activities. Definitely. I like Mary's comment about not liking it to be an English class and talk about symbolism and everything like that. So the first iteration of the book club, it was the college novel, and we were talking about the themes and the symbolism, and yeah, it's not something I would want to do. So. But anyway, thanks you for the ideas. I don't want to monopolize the discussion, but thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. So
we have a couple of book clubs in Morristown that I don't run, but might be interesting to other people. So one of them is a book and movie club where they will take something like Ready Player One, although I don't think they've done that, read the book and watch the movie, and then talk about the comparison of, how did they interpret the book and how did it change in the movie. Another one that we started during COVID is called Virtual Classics. And at first in 2020, it was really classics, things that were out of copyright and you could get online for free. Now it's more just older titles that people can find in the library or somewhere. So those are 2 that we do, that I don't do personally. Our regular book clubs, we kind of are doing that hybrid thing where it's the same book once in person and once on Zoom. But we came to that backwards because it used to be we'd have an evening book club and a morning book club, and they were different books. So we'd be doing like 20 books a year or something like that. And then we decided we're going to do the same book every month, both in the evening and the morning. So it actually made it easier because you'd have to do half as many books. But we, I don't know, there's 4 or 5 people who just rotate among those evening and morning book groups. So it's not really, there's no one general expectations or theme, or it's just whatever somebody picks is going to be the book for that month, and someone else might pick a book for a different month and run the group a little bit differently, and that's what we end up doing.
Thanks.
I've been running the nonfiction book club at the Long Branch Free Public Library for I don't know how to get on this. Okay. Since like 2008, and we do a really varied group of books. I usually originally I used bookmovement.com for ideas. Now I'm using BookBub, and I make sure there are going to be enough copies. And now that we have a special needs young man, well, he's in his 30s, but I still think of him as a kid, in our book club, we make sure that there's an audio CD available. And then I come up with the lists during the year and have members indicate what they might want and prepare a ballot for them, which we vote on. We run September through June. We vote on the books in May with a runoff in June if there are any tie votes. When I was out on sick leave, the adult programming manager took over the club, but the members stepped up to lead the discussions. I used to write all the questions. I was actually kind of relieved when the director said she wanted to continue with the members taking turns writing the questions. Because we're going to be undergoing renovation, I'm planning first of all on picking up on what Lisa did in bringing the books to a meeting and having them examine them before they voted. But I'm going to start in January because we're going to be undergoing renovations, and I don't want to, when we have to start meeting at our branch library, I don't want to overwhelm the branch manager with, all the books. We have four men who are members of our group. Not everyone attends every meeting. But I'm hoping to get, I'm concerned that, I've been concerned that people with disabilities do not seem to attend, and visible disabilities, I should say, do not seem to attend any programs at the library that are not about disabilities. So I'm hoping to reach out to more to an organization called Motions, which runs a house for people with physical disabilities. We currently have, I'm not sure what his diagnosis is. The young man who has a reading disability. I think it may be ADHD that's his problem, but he practically lives at the library and he loves the library. So I was glad when he wanted to join the group. And since we have a firm rule, I came up with the rules with the first members, and we did revise one rule. Originally said no children allowed. After one member had to bring her grandchildren who were exceptionally well behaved, I changed it to well-behaved children are welcome. Hers were very young. She's the only one who's ever needed to bring anybody, but bring any kids. I would love to participate, to be on the list for the new
Forum?
discussion mode. And anybody who wants to contact me and is thinking of running a nonfiction book club can email me at the Long Branch Free Public Library.
Okay, and Janet, would you also consider putting some of your the books that you have discussed in the past and your questions in the book club discussion list subfolder so that those of us who are thinking about running nonfiction book clubs could benefit from the work that you did?
Yeah, I don't have a complete list for the first year or two,
That's okay.
but I always make up a list. I can't give you the ones since I don't know how many I can give you of the ones since the members started coming up with the questions, but maybe some of them.
That's fine.
Sure.
We don't, yeah,
That too.
whatever we can share with each other will be better.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So let's see. Who was it that said something about, oh, the book club kits? I did some, that's not it. No, that's not it. Okay. So I did some research. Some libraries in New Jersey, I know Parsippany has a lot of book club kits, and Warren County has a lot of book club kits. And Fairfield Public Library here in my consortium, PALS Plus, has book club kits. What's really neat is that Warren County Library and Parsippany Library will loan them via Jersey Cat, but it's kind of convoluted to do it. So, and I checked with Jill Butcher, who is the person who runs the book club kits for Warren County, to make sure it was okay with her for me to tell you guys this. So basically, obviously, you're not going to be able to borrow a book club kit from them via Jersey Cat if it's not on the shelf. So this document here is in our shared folder. You would first need to go to their catalog and look at the results. And so sadly, you can't request the Lost Apothecary via Jersey Cat right now because it's not on the shelf, but Bel Canto, you could. So then you have to go into Jersey Cat. And of course, those of you who have worked with Jersey Cat know kind of it's a pain in the ass. So what I found is if you are looking for a book club kit from a specific library, you do an advanced search, you go into resources, select the library that you want, and then do a keyword search for book club kit. And then it shows, then you just do the loan request like you normally would. Warren County Library checks out, loans them for 6 weeks. And so then when we receive a borrowed book club kit at our library, we have a tracking sheet for it that looks something like this. And an example of that is also in this folder, where we make a note of what the barcode of the kit is, who owns it, when we borrowed it from, and when it's due. And then at the book club discussion, when we hand them out, we note which patron checked out which copy. So these are not individually barcoded copies. We did have an example where we borrowed a book club kit from Fairfield, and one of our patrons returned a book damaged. So we got another copy and we replaced that copy for Fairfield, and we pursued the patron and asked them to give us some money for that. So but that's another question, is why I even wanted to do this is, once we have done a book club and we have a kit for it, we're not going to need to do that again. So I want to share that with other libraries, and I want to be able to borrow them from other libraries, because it's a lot of work to request 10 or 15 individual copies of a book club kit. So I think it will help us when we have this with this forum. And now that we know that we can go on Jersey Cat and request them from each other. And one of the things Jill from Warren County Library said to me is, yeah, they're not really going out the way that we want them to. So that if we start borrowing them from Jersey Cat, we're going to help their circulation too, because they also will lend them, there are community book clubs who might want to check out a book club kit in Warren County, but there's also all of us all over New Jersey who are looking for, something to read. And if another library has thought about it and decided that this book is worth putting together a book club kit for, it's probably worth us. I've completely lost my train of thought, but you know what I mean. And so we have a couple more minutes. Is there anything specific that other people want to talk about? If not, I thought it would be interesting if we wanted to share some ideas of books that have really caused great discussions. Okay, I'm gonna start. I'm not a big poetry fan, and neither are the people in my book club, but during National Poetry Month, I try to encourage them to read something different. So in this past April, we read a book that I believe is a young adult book. It's called Kent State. The author's name is Deborah something. It was a short book written in verse about the Kent State University shootings. And it was really powerful, and they enjoyed the way that it was done, and it caused a lot of interesting discussion because a lot of my members are of the age where they remembered that happening. It was a short book. It was one of those, felt like a win because, none of us are really into poetry, but they did say they enjoyed it. So I would recommend that one. That was a pretty good discussion one. Anybody else?
I'll go. Mary, I don't have my phone with me, so I can't tell you the author, but the book was a nonfiction book, The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. And I don't know if anyone's read this book, but it's about a young man from Newark who goes to one of the Ivy schools, I think Yale, and you sort of know from the title where it's going, but it's a very interesting story. My patrons loved it because it was local. It talks a lot about privilege and higher education, and there's a whole element about drugs and legalizing marijuana, which was topical. So people got onto it from a lot of different angles, and it's a book that's really stuck with me. I think about it almost every week. It was very powerful.
Thank you. I will put a list of the books that we're talking about in our shared drive. Okay, I can tell you a book not to recommend. My coworker, my book club does not like science fiction, so I recommended a book called The Sparrow, and they have never forgiven me. If These Stones Could Talk by Elaine Buck and Beverly Mills about African-American families in Hopewell, New Jersey.
Is that a recommend or a not recommend? And repeat the title.
Sharon from it just said in the chat, If These Stones Could Talk by Elaine Buck and Beverly Mills. And don't worry, Janet, I'll stick this in our shared drive.
Yeah,
But
it's a, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's a recommend. I mean, it's local to our area, but that was my most successful one. That was the group that I got 6 folks to come to.
And the document that I will create in our shared drive, you should feel free to add any books that if you can't think of anything right now that have really caused good discussion, please feel free to add those.
Our group in Pennsauken has only met 3 times, but I think we've had a good discussion each time. The first group, we had about 6 people, and we discussed The Push by Ashley Audrain, which was sort of a thriller, and they seemed to like that one a lot. And the second time, based on the recommendation of one of the members, we read The Midnight Library. And again, that was a good discussion. And our third book was Where'd You Go, Bernadette? And some of us did had seen the movie and compared the movie to the book, but those were all good discussions, and the patrons seemed to like them.
Great, thank you.
One we just did recently was This Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell by Robert Dugoni. And I have to say, 3 of the we have one couple that comes regularly, but 2 of the other women they love the book so much they gave it to their husbands, and I had 3 of I had 3 husbands there that night, but everybody seemed to really like that book. So
I also just wanted to add, I attended a book club for a while that was a young adult for adults book club in Haddonfield. And one of the books we read was Monday is Not Coming. And that was really a great discussion. That was a YA book from a few years back that was really, it just was a great discussion. So I recommend that if anyone does a YA book club.
Yeah, I've had success making my book club members read YA books. Too. They read, I asked them to read Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. I don't know if any of you have read that one, but
I have.
they loved it. So, and I asked, and actually this past year, well, okay, when I say I make them read it, I say, this is the book we're reading this month, but I don't give them guilt if they don't read it. But we reread, we read the Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. Remember that book?
Oh, I love that book.
Now, part of the problem was getting the copies from the lending libraries. That's such an old book that it really turned them off when it came in all like yellowed and, you know, so that's another issue. But yeah, we read a little bit of everything because when we started our group, they said we mostly read thrillers, but we'd like to, you know, try other stuff. So I see what I can get away with.
Yeah, I can say that when you mentioned reading an old book, we read a new book and it was a little bit hard to get copies, but we read the first in the Richard Osman trilogy, the Thursday Murder Club, and that was a lot of fun. Everyone liked it. I read it with a couple book clubs and our in-person group to sort of break it up. I put character names on the back of the the people when they came into the room. And then instead of saying first whether we liked the book or we didn't like the book, we tried to guess who the other person was.
Wow.
Is that clear? I don't know if I explained that
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Actually, that's one of the book club kits that Warren County Library has.
Oh,
It's currently checked out. It's fantastic. Yeah.
If anyone's not reading that series, that trilogy, get on it now. The third
Missing
one
out,
is the
yeah.
best.
Yeah. Okay, so we're about out of time. Does anybody have any last comments? So I am looking forward to talking with you all again on the forum once we get it set up. No pressure, Darby, none at all. And please do contribute to our shared folder so that we can learn from each other and maybe many hands make light work, yada, yada. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mary. And thank you so much to everyone who contributed to the discussion today. This was a really lively discussion, which is not always the case when you plan one of these programs that's discussion based, right? You have to hope everybody jumps in, and you all did. So kudos to you. We will not have a skill sharing conversation in January. We just need a minute. We will have one hosted in February 9th. On creative arts and crafts programming. So if you do arts and crafts programming in your library and you need some ideas, we will host this similar format on February 9th on that topic. So look out for that. And again, I just want to say thanks to Mary for putting this all together and for being an excellent discussion host. And we will see you all hopefully very soon.
And on the forum. And in the meantime, happy holidays and happy reading.